Friday Locked On Lions, we get ready for the Bucs game. Brad Spielberger from PFF will join us.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's good, everybody? Matt Dery with you on a Friday edition of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Indeed, your team every day. It's Friday the 13th, October 13th, and a Saturday, October 14th. Lions at 4:25 Sunday will be in Tampa to take on the Bucs. Those of you watching on YouTube can see them on the screen. Brad Spielberger, our buddy from Pro Football Focus, is going to join us momentarily. Couple of items first and foremost. Yes, I'm well aware. Everybody that's hit me up on Twitter at Dery Speaks, at Locked On Lions, yesterday's crossover with James Yarko from the Locked On Bucs, when he did say, and Brad will laugh at this, if Aiden Hutchinson went up against Tristan Wirfs 100 times, Wirfs would win 99 times. I did hear that, okay? Everybody is like, why didn't you go off on him? I'm not going to start screaming during the crossover with James. I like James. James is 100% wrong on this. We all make mistakes. We all say stupid stuff on these shows. So, yes, I heard it. Yeah, they probably won't match up against each other. Wirfs is a really good player. But yes, I did catch that. Everybody's like, how did you not jump down his throat? It's not my style to do that. That was his opinion. That's number one. Number two, injury-wise, and we'll get in this with Brad as well. Sam Laporta's calf injury should be fine. He should be able to go this weekend. Amon-Ra St. Brown should be good to go. Jahmyr Gibbs, we'll see. Brian Branch, I'm not very confident will play Sunday against the Bucs. With that as the backdrop, Brad Spielberger is here from PFF. Brad, this is an intriguing Sunday late afternoon game now, isn't it?
It's pretty intriguing. The Bucs obviously playing better football than they have in the last, on offense at least, even with Tom Brady last year. Doing some different things, some different wrinkles we'll get into. But yeah, maybe preseason we didn't circle this one as an interesting game, but it certainly is now.
So if Aiden Hutchinson went up against Tristan Wirfs 100 times, what number would you give it in terms of how many times Wirfs would win?
Here's how I'll dodge this question masterfully. The beauty of Aiden Hutchinson is that he moves all around. I mean, first of all, as you know, he primarily goes up against right tackles. But secondly, that's the beauty of being able to kick him inside and move him all around the formation is that you can avoid good matchups. Look, I think Tristan Wirfs might be the best tackle in the entire NFL. I'll say that. But Aiden Hutchinson is playing like a top 5 edge defender in the NFL as well. So out of 100, he'd get him, 10, 15 times. It sounds low, but that's actually a pretty decent number, on a per pass rush snap basis. Yeah, I don't know about one, but it's not, I'm not going to say 50 either to pander to the audience.
Come on. Lions fans are fired up right now. It's interesting. They moved this game to 4:25, then they don't give us Kevin Burkhardt and the number one crew. And the national game, I guess, is Eagles and Jets. Not that, we need to talk about the announcers. I know Adam Amin and those guys will do well, and Moose, but it is kind of strange. They moved this to late afternoon, isn't it? But then you look up and go, all right, Tampa Bay's playing pretty well. When the league makes moves like this, what's that all about, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's now we're entering into flex season. It still is kind of tough. I know we've talked with Chris Collinsworth at NBC about some of the flex options. He was not referring to Giants Bills this weekend, I promise. He wasn't trying to change that game. Wink, wink, wink. No, like that, they obviously now are in that zone and can do these things, but it still is complicated. We talk about the announcers. They probably have all their logistics already ironed out, things like that. But no, it shows respect. I mean, you get the debut kickoff game against the Chiefs, which you win, and you're playing good football still. Get ready for a lot of 4 o'clocks and Sunday night and Monday night. I know it's rare territory for Lions fans out there, but get ready for it. Get used to it.
Poor Collinsworth and Tirico on Sunday night. I mean, Giants, Bills. And I get it. It's a New York market, but I'm tired of watching the Giants, Brad. Already, I'm tired of it.
You and me both. I mean, they're hard to watch. Yes. They're not even fun bad. They're just bad.
Well, it'll be interesting to see Taylor play. I mean, I haven't seen Tyrod Taylor, but it seems like I haven't seen him play in 10 years. So that ought to be intriguing. All right, Bucs. Give us a quick. I want to obviously talk a lot of Lions, but why is Tampa 3-1? What's going on there?
I think the biggest thing really is bringing in Dave Canales, the quarterback's coach and maybe pass game coordinator with the Seattle Seahawks, now their offensive coordinator. The Buccaneers were dead last in the NFL last year in play action rate. They're now first in the NFL in play action rate. And obviously, you're going to have a different offense with Tom Brady and Baker Mayfield. You know, a 44-year-old Tom Brady's not trying to turn his back to a defense, but their offense was so static and so stale last year. They had no motion. Like I said, no play action. All their routes were like comebackers, and it was just so, just like I said, a static offense. And so I think what you're seeing from Canales is he's getting the playmakers catching the ball while moving, in space, not just in space, but also with a head of steam. So the Lions for us this year are about 8th in coverage grade against play action. They're, I think, like 7th or so in terms of EPA per dropback allowed on play action, but that has to be the number one thing to keep an eye on. They can't really run the football that well in Tampa still, but they don't care. They still run a lot of play action, let Baker roll out from the pocket, move to his left, to his right. The biggest thing for me, too, is you got to get Baker Mayfield on the ground. He is having the most outlier season of his career by an order of magnitudes. His pressure to sack rate is usually in the 30s. Right now, it's about 3.5%. So he's been getting pressure, but he's actually done a very good job of avoiding it. You need Aiden and Aleem and Kaminsky, et cetera, to get him down on the ground, get those sacks, make them lose some yards.
The keys for the last 3 weeks, all Lion wins, as you know, have just been, they've just pounded people on the ground and put teams away with the running game. And you look at the Tampa Bay, it's interesting. I said this maybe yesterday and to James on Thursday, or maybe Wednesday and Thursday. Bucs run defense is fine in regular numbers, PFF numbers, ESPN advanced analytics. I guess the run defense is dead last. It's weird how that works, but do you think the Lions can do what they've been doing against this Tampa defense?
Yeah, their grade is poor, but again, just to reference, EPA per play, which, folks probably know, but an efficiency metric, kind of looking at the actual context of the play, they're middle of the pack. And obviously, historically, they've been a phenomenal run defense. I think you're getting a healthy Vita Vea who looks like 2021 Vita Vea, not 2022 Vita Vea. Devin White, obviously, he probably has a lot to do with that negative grade. I do think for us a little bit, we kind of downgrade him for how good of an athlete he is, that he over pursues sometimes and misses some tackles, but probably in a position to make a tackle that most guys can't get in. So I still think this is a good run defense and a unit you should be afraid of to a degree. Look, they've had injuries in the secondary to Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean. Those guys both should be back now coming off their bye. I think you're going to see, statistically, whatever, this is a better defense than their numbers would suggest from a talent standpoint.
Brad Spielberger with us on this Friday edition of Locked On Lions, brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code all in lowercase LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. All right, so it's interesting. You mentioned, just the way the Bucs linebackers have played, and I've always been a big Levante David fan, but it seems like the Bucs are getting Kalijah Kancey healthy. I mocked him to the Lions 50 times and got mocked by my listeners, but do you think he'll go, and what kind of a difference would that make?
You and me both. I think every mock I did had Kalijah Kancey going to the Lions with that 18th overall pick. He's a good player. He's been pretty good out of the gate already. He is, as of right now in his young season, he's kind of not a pass rush specialist, but he's not exactly a great early down guy. You're going to see him, though, in passing situations, second and long, third and long. He's going to come out there. And, obviously the interior now, Graham Glasgow steps in, plays very good football, I thought, last week. I didn't even look at his grade, but I thought the film was really good for him.
Yeah.
That depth is important. Ragnow obviously dealing with stuff the whole year, but looks to be okay. Jonah, kind of the same thing. They have a lot of guys that can rush the passer. They do, Todd Bowles dials up a lot of different looks and is still, I think, one of the better defensive coordinators in the NFL, ignoring his head coach game management type of stuff. So I think you're going to see a lot. I think they're going to try to confuse Jared Goff and make him feel uncomfortable. They rotate coverage a lot, all those things. So, yeah, I think Kalijah is going to have opportunities where he gets some one-on-ones. He's fast. He's quick. He has good use of his hands for a rookie player. It's going to be an important matchup.
Brad Spielberger from PFF joining us. You guys also, just to kind of piggyback off the O-line talk, Pro Football Focus has the Lions number 2 in terms of offensive lines. Only Philadelphia is better. We know that's why the Eagles have been so successful the last couple of years. That's pretty good company, isn't it, Brad?
That's the best company you could have in an offensive line grading metric. No question about it.
Why are they 2? Is it because of just this ground game that's been so good? Obviously, Jared Goff really hasn't been touched either, but going into the season, everybody thought top 5, top 3 for some. But maybe the depth is a big factor too.
Huge. Yeah, I think it's a mix of both. I mean, you talk about actually in the first week, Halapoulivaati Vaitai, first couple of weeks, he was great and was playing really good football, especially as a road grader, really just kind of moving people in the run game. But I think the reason they're number 2 is because they are good in both facets. I mean, Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell, I guess Decker probably a better pass protector than a run blocker. Sewell, I think borderline elite in both categories. And then on the interior, all those guys. Look, I mean, you saw a lot of Evan Brown and different players last year as they were dealing with injuries. Obviously, again, we just talked about they're still, nicks and bruises, but they look healthier, they look fresher. And then also, I think, Jamal Williams obviously was a good early down guy last year too, but I think David Montgomery, and this kind of goes into the whole Jahmyr Gibbs, controversy, so to speak. Is he the best running back in the world? No. Is he the most dynamic guy that's going to break off 80-yard runs? No. But he's patient. He knows how to let a hole develop. He knows not to miss opportunities to cut back. And basically, he takes advantage of this offensive line very well. I know he's averaging like 4 yards a carry, but you see very few zeros, and you see a lot of 4 yards in a cloud of dust, and we maybe view that in a negative connotation. If this team with this defense, if you're staying ahead of the chains, that's really all you need, and it's working quite well.
More with Brad Spielberger coming up next. I want to ask him about Jahmyr Gibbs a little bit, and just what the Lions also are doing on the defensive side. But Locked On Lions today is brought to you by our friends at Jase Medical. We want to tell you about Jase Medical because everybody should be empowered to take care of themselves, their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jase Medical offers the Jase Case. Jase Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you peace of mind. So you're not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jase Medical makes sure you have the meds in hand. Jase Medical is simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. So don't get caught unprepared. The folks at Jase are great. Get $20 off on these life-saving antibiotics today from Jase Medical by using my code LOCKEDON at checkout at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Back with Mr. Brad Spielberger from PFF. Follow him on Twitter at PFF_Brad. You said this before, just Jahmyr Gibbs controversy, because it went back to draft night, and you and I were talking about that a while ago. But now Scotty Montgomery, the Lions running backs coach, has come out and said, this is exactly how we wanted it to be with Montgomery and Gibbs. And for some, including me, I'm going, wait a minute. I drafted him in fantasy. I thought he'd explode. I thought he'd be more in the passing game. PFF, you guys are in love with Jalen Carter, not so much with Gibbs. Are we jumping the gun a little bit?
Yeah, it's very, very early. Yeah, no question about it. I mean, look, he is a specific talent. Like you said, as a pass catcher, you'd like to see him more involved. I think, especially during the Jameson Williams suspension and with injuries to Amon-Ra, I would have liked to see more, 21 personnel and get both those guys on the field and cause some headaches. I mean, far be it for me to critique a Ben Johnson offense, but I think there were, maybe wrinkles you could see there, but it goes back to what I just talked about with David Montgomery. There are a couple times, and look, this is the number one thing that comes with time for young running backs is you do see him maybe explode into holes a little bit early and not wait for someone to develop, or he misses, like he bounces outside when he probably should stay inside and be patient. All things that we see young guys go through and learn. I always go back to Alvin Kamara in New Orleans, didn't really play the first 6 weeks he was there, and then eventually was simply too good to not play. I mean, they cut Adrian Peterson because he was just like clearly not as good as Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram at that time. So have patience. It will get there. He's on all my fantasy teams as well. I think we will see it. I think you got to just wait for a little bit and it'll come.
Again, he practiced on Wednesday. Dan Campbell said it was a good day. We'll see if he can go this weekend after missing last week's game. And now Bam Knight is out, so the Lions are pretty thin at running back. And by the way, and Brad, you could back me up on this, Jalen Carter's PFF grade, I believe, is 91.8, which is tops among all defensive rookies. We love Brian Branch in Detroit, but man, that's pretty impressive for Carter so far, huh?
Jalen Carter can no longer be compared to rookies. He needs to be compared to like Aaron Donald and Chris Jones. That's how good he is. I mean, he is a special player. Look, he fell for non-football reasons, and we don't need to get into a larger conversation about that. There's a reason the team picking a 10th overall, who traded up to Chicago at 9 to get him. Obviously, it was a luxury pick. Was the New Orleans Saints who sent the Eagles that pick. and they were willing to take that chance. They believed in their culture and their locker room, probably the most veteran-driven team in the entire NFL. I know fans hate hearing this. Look, I'm a Bears fan. Every Bears fan is disgusted that he is not on the Chicago Bears, but yeah, no, he is one of the best pass rushers from the interior already in the NFL. I mean, he has nuance. He has, like I talk about, good use of his hands. He's good on stunts and twists. Like, he was the best player in this draft class, and that is already bearing out.
All right, Brad, tell me a little bit about Sam Laporta. You know, man, it's crazy to think that he lasted as long as he did and going down into the second round, but he's just been unbelievable right now. What kind of pace is he on for rookie tight ends?
It's remarkable. I mean, he's top 5 in like every single metric we have: yards per route run, just traditional stats, receiving yards, receptions, touchdowns. But then also the advanced stuff. He's top 5 in receiving grade. He is a good blocker, and I think you see their faith and trust in him. He'll combo block and leak, or he'll stay in as an inline. Like he's being asked to do a lot and is delivering in every facet. But yeah, obviously the fun stuff is as a receiver. I mean, yeah, he's on pace to challenge like Mike Ditka records from back in the 60s. He is incredible. I mean, what a great pick. I love him coming out of Iowa. I'm not surprised Dalton Kincaid was the first tight end, just because he's kind of a different athlete, kind of a mismatch, like move tight end. But Laporta, yeah, I mean, he's on pace to genuinely shatter records among rookie tight ends.
It's interesting because, Jameson Williams now is back and they're easing him in and easing Gibbs in a little bit. But it seems like Laporta picked it up right away. And for that position, with the reliance of the Ben Johnson offense, the play action passing game and Goff, what a fit that is, right?
Remarkable. We talk about it all the time too. One of the slowest positions in the NFL to see adjustment. Like even the best tight ends are not very productive as rookies, and they kind of figure it out because I think you have so many responsibilities. Like your playbook and your assignments and responsibilities might be the most of any player on either side of the ball, right? Because you are literally a blocker and a pass catcher. But yeah, I mean the touchdown pass, where he was rolled out to the right side up the seam and was wide open, and Jared Goff hit him. I know it's a fun wrinkle other teams have ran, but there's nuance in what he's doing. It's not just, he's finding soft spots in zones, sitting down and making guys miss. Like he's running good routes. He can create separation against safeties and linebackers or the occasional slot corner. It's a masterful fit, and it could only get better.
And it's interesting too, because we were watching the Packers the other night on Monday Night Football, and they also drafted a tight end pretty high. Kincaid with Buffalo, but none of these guys are close to Laporta right now.
I mean, Meyer was the pick after him, I want to say, with the trade up for the Raiders, and I think he had one catch until he had a couple nice plays in that game against Green Bay. But yeah, I mean, I also, as much as I did like Laporta, when you come out of Iowa, they don't really do a whole lot in the passing game, not just for tight ends. They don't pass the ball, period. That's the Iowa Hawkeyes, right?
They used to, yeah.
They used to. That's true. So it's honestly impressive how quickly he's picked things up and developed. And yeah, Ben Johnson clearly has a ton of faith in him as a player. But yeah, I mean, he's the best tight end in this class. I already think he's a top 7 tight end in the NFL.
Wow. It's like you said, and even in the blocking game in this offense, you've got to be able to block as a tight end. We know Brock Wright, PFFs, you guys have been all over him, is not performing. But like last year when the Lions had Williams and Swift, you got to be able to block in the Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell, offense. And Laporta seems like that his run blocking grade's pretty good too, right?
Yeah. So Wright and Mitchell were better last year. Probably just a small sample size thing there. But yeah, I mean, look, you trade TJ Hawkinson for a reason. I don't think he's as bad of a blocker as he's not a plus there. I don't think he's a massive minus compared to the position. But Laporta already looks like it could be a net benefit in that aspect. And yeah, for every offense, but in particular this offense, you want to run a lot of duo. You want to use those guys as blockers. He already can do it.
He's going to obviously be in that passing game you mentioned before about Sunday with Todd Bowles, always different wrinkles, bringing corners off the edge. Antoine Winfield, who's a defensive back, is their leading tackler and tackling for loss. He's in the backfield all game. What do the Lions do, you think, offensively? And if St. Brown's able to go, which I think he will, you got to have him for this game.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I do think you are going to see a good bit of that Winfield-Laporta matchup. Just kind of going back to that, he plays in the slot for them a lot. He takes number 3 receivers or tight ends that are flexed out, in the slot. So I think that'll be a good battle, and that's a very, very good football player in every aspect of football right now. So yeah, I think the biggest thing is getting the ball out quickly, continuing to not letting these pass rushers tee off because they really do have a good platoon. And you mentioned Kancey, obviously on the edge. Joe Tryon-Shank is playing good football this year. Shaq Barrett looks healthy again, playing well. So they can rotate bodies and keep guys fresh. And so that's going to get you at the quarterback quicker. So yeah, Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to be huge because I think you are going to see a lot of 2-second, 5-step drop, hit the top of your drop, one hitch, get the ball out quickly. I think, Jameson Williams more, obviously we think of him as a deep threat, but maybe you see some screens or slants or quick outs to him as well. I think that's going to be the key because Todd Bowles does sit back in a lot of zone. He'll let you win underneath. He kind of wants you to try to, have a 15-play drive, and eventually his philosophy is you're going to make a mistake against us. So I think that's the key. Don't make mistakes. Take what the defense gives you. As much as the deep shots have been working and have been fun, live in that intermediate area and be comfortable with it.
Yeah, Tampa Bay takeaway numbers are very good. All right. Well, I want to get into the rest of the NFC a little bit with Brad. Everybody's talking about the Lions now moving up to that 3 spot behind San Francisco and Philly. We'll ask Brad about that coming up next. But what about our friends at PrizePicks? Hey, daily fantasy sports that is the most fun is at PrizePicks, because what you do is you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Think about this. You can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. You're watching the games and playing that way. It is a lot of fun. Saquon Barkley, Patrick Mahomes from last night, whatever you're thinking about for this weekend, go for it. Justin Jefferson's out. What does that mean for the Vikings wide receivers? And KJ Osborne, is he going to be over 100 yards, over 80 yards? Check out the projections and guess and pick over or under or more than or less than and watch the winnings come in. Do yourself a favor. Give it a shot. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, more with Brad Spielberger, wrapping up with Brad. All right, so everybody's saying San Francisco, Philly. Are you also on the Lions at 3 in the NFC bandwagon right now?
I think they're very much so in the conversation. I think after those top 2, I think it's, Dallas, Detroit, Seattle, I am a fan of still, and then a couple other plucky teams in the mix. But I think that nucleus of 5, I do think is a bit separated from the rest. And I'll say this, look, Philadelphia is a great football team, great organization, but we were just talking a ton about depth. I worry about some aspects of the Philadelphia Eagles where we've already seen a couple injuries in the secondary, and they've been exploitable through the air. You can throw on that team right now. And that's, Darius Slay might not play this, against the Jets this weekend. So another injury there. And then a receiver too, obviously they have probably one of the best, duos in the NFL. If they lose AJ Brown or Devontae Smith, I'm not really sure who they're throwing the ball to out wide. So obviously obviously don't expect that to happen, but the ability right now we've seen so far of Detroit and San Fran to navigate the injuries they've had and still be extremely productive. I wonder if the same thing is able to happen in Philadelphia. That could be, but come week 17, 18, that's how you get a leg up in the playoff race.
Can you imagine 4-1? It's October 13th, and and you and I were joking about this before I hit the record button. Some are saying the division's already over. I mean, the division's not good, and the Lions are in great shape, but I want to be patient, but I do understand and reality is kicking in here. No Justin Jefferson in Minnesota. Chicago's a mess. There's a lot going well and right now for the Lions in this division.
Yeah, I think they are talent-wise a significantly better football team than the rest of the 3 teams. I mean, obviously, Green Bay, the Detroit killed them in their own building, but even the games they did win against New Orleans, you injured Derek Carr, and you have great game management, great coaching by Matt LaFleur to go for 2 on the first touchdown and avoid overtime. Very, very sharp out of him. But they could be a 1-4 football team right now as well. It could be 4-1 and 3 1-4s without a couple key things swinging their way. It is early in the Jordan Love era. He has not looked good to me. He's one of our least accurate quarterbacks in the entire NFL. And then, he'd had the fewest pressures allowed through the first 4 weeks. And I think you saw Max Crosby, you saw the Lions get after him, and that came way down. His efficiency against pressure is not very good. So, yeah, I think Detroit, we're not going to get ahead of our skis here. We're not going to, but they are the class of this division. I'm not really sure it's particularly close for 2023.
It's crazy too. I know the Bears are a complete mess, although have been better as of late. And I know you watch the Vikings closely. Do you think they trade Cousins? I mean, now that Jefferson's gonna be out for a while, what's next for them?
Honestly, I think like they would maybe more open to moving Cousins than I think. It's really two teams. It's the Jets and the Falcons because trading a quarterback at the deadline is borderline impossible. Like we love talking about it, but to pick up new verbiage, to develop chemistry, to learn a new system, it's just so hard to do. But he obviously plays in a similar offense as those teams. I don't think they move him, but I do think Danielle Hunter is the big name to watch in Minnesota, and he's the best defensive player on the team, and the next best might be a 33-year-old Harrison Smith, and then it gets hard to name names after that. I mean, it's one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Honestly, credit to Brian Flores for blitzing at the highest rate in the league and doing different things just to mitigate the lack of talent. But I think Kirk stays, but guys like Danielle Hunter, maybe a guy like KJ Osborne, like other lower level players, I think they could, especially if they lose against Chicago this weekend. I think the smart thing for them to do would be to sell off and get some draft picks.
All right, I'll put you on the spot. Lions win this week?
Yeah, so I actually love the Lions this week. I know the Bucs come off a bye. I know they've played better, but they're actually 26th in success rate on offense this season. So they've relied a ton on explosive plays. They're like top 10 in EPA per play, which I've mentioned 10 times now. But success rate is simply just looking at on a down-to-down basis, are you staying ahead of the chain? So are you getting, I think it's 60% of the yardage needed on first down, 40% on second down, maybe I flipped those, 40, 60, and then obviously on third down, are you getting a first down? So in that area, they're not good. They've had a bunch of, Mike Evans bombs or guys forcing missed tackles and breaking off big gains, but they actually have not been very efficient on a down-to-down basis. This isn't a gambling show, but yeah, the Detroit -3 is one of my biggest bets of the weekend.
Wow. All right. Brad, great to see you as always. Thanks for doing it.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Brad Spielberger, the salary cap guru at PFF and also an NFL analyst, joining us today on this Friday edition of Locked On Lions. We'll talk to you Sunday after Lions and Bucs.